So you want to own your own business. I mean, who doesn't? You get to make a lot of money, set your own hours, be your own boss, and do whatever you want. At least that's what everyone tells you. But that only happens if you pick the right business, because if you pick the wrong one, you don't buy freedom, you buy stress, debt, customer complaints, in a business that only makes money if you're involved, and you don't want that. So in today's video, I'm gonna go over the worst boring businesses to buy in 2026. I'll break down why they're terrible investments, the hidden costs that most people don't talk about, and what I would buy instead for each one. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. Coming in at number 1 is laundromats. This is probably the most hype boring business on the internet, but in my opinion, it's also one of the worst ones to buy. Every video makes it sound like you can just buy a laundromat, collect money, and do nothing. But that is so far from the truth. And how do I know this? Well, because I've actually owned a laundromat. On the surface, laundromats look great. People always need to clean their clothes, the business is easy to understand, and you don't have to have a ton of inventory to manage. So I understand why people get excited about them. But here's the part most people don't think about. When you buy a laundromat, you're not just buying cash flow and the money, you're buying machines, you're buying plumbing, you're buying utility bills, and you're buying a lease. And if you buy the wrong laundromat, you might not be buying a business at all, you might just be buying someone else's headache. A laundromat can look really profitable on paper because the seller shows you exactly what you want to see. So don't get me started on all the fake numbers that come with buying this business. Since a lot of laundromats are still mostly cash businesses, the numbers can be very hard to verify. So in many cases, you're going in pretty much blind. You don't know how much that business is actually making. Are the expenses true, or what is made up? The seller might hold back on the fact that the machines are super old, the dryers are inefficient, the water bill is going up, and the landlord is about to raise rent. Or the biggest one, there are like 5 other laundromats all within a 1-mile radius of the one you're looking to buy. The lease is one of the biggest things people miss, because that's one of the biggest things that actually affect a laundromat's value. A longer lease but older machines might be valued a little higher than ones with, better machines, but only a few years left on the lease. And that's important because a lot of laundromats don't own the real estate, they lease the space. So you could buy the laundromat, improve the machines, increase revenue, build up the business, and then when the lease comes up, the landlord captures all the upside just by raising your rent. That's why I think the internet makes laundromats sound way easier than they actually are. A laundromat can be a good business, but it takes a lot of work to build it up. And the profitable ones are usually very expensive, and the cheap ones are usually cheap for a reason. So if you are thinking about buying a laundromat, don't just look at the numbers the seller provides, verify everything, look at the machines, look at the lease terms, look at the utility bills, look at the competition, and just make sure everything matches up, because a lot of people who buy laundromats do not do that. The second business to avoid is daycare and childcare centers. This one might surprise people because childcare seems like one of the safest businesses in the world. Parents need childcare, people have to go to work, wait lists are always super long, and if you have kids, you already know childcare is super expensive. So from the outside, it feels like, how could this be a bad business? Demand looks like it's basically unlimited. But that's exactly why this business is so tricky. High demand does not automatically mean high profit. Childcare is one of those businesses where everyone feels squeezed at the same time. Parents feel like they're paying too much, workers feel like they're not getting paid enough, and the owner is stuck in the middle trying to cover payroll, rent, insurance, licensing, inspections, and everything, and still trying to make a profit. The Bipartisan Policy Center says labor is usually one of the largest expenses for childcare, with many spending at least 60% of revenue just on wages alone. And even with parents paying a lot nowadays for childcare, many childcare providers operate with profit margins just under 1%. Under 1%. That means your business could be making about $1 million a year, but you're only profiting just $10,000. You're one teacher away from quitting, and now you might not be able to accept any more kids because the staff to child ratio goes up. Your insurance goes up, and now your margin disappears. Your enrollment drops for 1 month, and payroll still has to be paid. A parent complains online, and suddenly your reputation is at risk. A licensing issue happens, and now the whole business is in danger. That's why childcare is one of the most most misunderstood boring businesses because people see demand, but they don't see the responsibility they come with it. They don't see the regulation. This is not like, renting out a storage unit. This is children, parents, employees, state rules, inspections, liability, and a whole lot of trust. Childcare might be one of the most needed businesses in America or even the world, but that does not automatically make it a good investment. The best business is not just a business with demand. The best business is a business where demand can actually turn into a profit. And with childcare, there isn't a lot of it. Coming in at number 3 is self-storage units. And this is another one everyone loves, and I understand why. Self-storage feels like the dream boring business. The customer puts themselves into a unit. The unit doesn't call you at midnight. The unit doesn't complain. There's no inventory, no appointments, and no complicated customer service that needs to be done. And on top of all that, you get paid every single month. On paper, self-storage has been an amazing business for a very long time. But here's the problem. Everybody knows about it now. And when everyone knows a business is good, the good deals disappear. Self-storage is not magic. It is still real estate at the end of the day. It still depends on location, supply, demand, interest rates, occupancy, insurance, property taxes, and how much competition is nearby. Rent Cafe reported that in May 2026, national self-storage street rates average about $133 per month, down 2.2% year over year. It also said that 70% of the 150 largest US cities recorded annual rent declines in self-storage rents. That is the part people are not paying attention to. Everyone talks about self-storage like it's this perfect recession-proof business, but if rents are falling in most large markets, that means operators are competing on price. And when operators compete on price, the buyer who overpaid for the business gets hurt first. The biggest danger with self-storage is not that the business is bad. The danger is that the business is so obviously good that people are willing to overpay for it. And when you overpay for a real estate business, the business does not have to fail for you to lose money. It just has to underperform from what you were expecting. If you assume 92% occupancy and you get 82%, your cash flow changes dramatically. If you assume rents would rise 5% year over year and now they're automatically falling, well, your valuation is going to get hurt. So self-storage is not bad. The problem is that everyone knows it's good, and that makes it a very easy business to overpay for. The fourth business is car washes. Car washes might be one of the most deceptive businesses on this list because visually they look like money printers. You drive by, there's always a long line, cars keep coming in, customers are now paying monthly subscriptions, and the business looks automated. But here's what no one's talking about. In 2025, Zips Car Wash, one of the largest privately owned car wash companies in the US, filed for bankruptcy. It operated more than 260 car washes and blamed the bankruptcy on rising interest rates, higher labor costs, and increased competition in a market that has seen roughly 900 new car wash sites open every year for the past 5 years. Reuters also reported Zips had $654 million in debt and only $1 million in cash on hand. That alone should make you pause, because if a major operator with hundreds of locations can get squeezed by debt, labor, and competition, imagine what happens to a beginner who buys one overpriced car wash with a loan. Car washes have a lot of hidden costs: equipment breaks, conveyor breaks, vacuum system breaks, water, sewage, electricity, chemicals, insurance, rent, property taxes. It goes on and on. And on top of that, there's also this new membership model, which sounds amazing, but can also be a huge trap. Because once every car wash in town offers a $20 or $30 monthly plan, customers can easily switch. Now you're competing on subscription pricing, wash quality, convenience, speed, reviews, and location. That's why I would be very careful with car washes, not because they can't work, they very much can, but because they attract people who think the business is more passive than it really is. A car wash looks automated from the customer side, but from the owner side, it can be a very maintenance heavy, debt heavy, competition heavy business where you're just one one bad location away from getting a bad deal and losing all your money. Okay, the fifth business is property management. This one sounds amazing because it seems super easy. You don't have to buy the properties, you just manage them and collect a percentage of rent every single month, and that's it. But that is actually very far from the truth. Property management sounds like you're managing properties, but in reality, you're just managing problems. Tenants call when something breaks. Owners call when expenses are too high. Contractors don't show up. Rent is late. Evictions happen. Reviews matter. And local laws are always changing. And somehow, everyone expects you to solve every problem overnight while they're only paying you a small percentage of rent. Most property managers charge around 8 to 12% of monthly rent for single-family homes and small multifamily properties. Now, that sounds decent until you actually do the math. If a property rents for $2,000 a month and you charge 10%, you make $200 per door per month. So to gross $20,000 a month in management fees, you would need 100 doors. I mean, I can barely handle my few rental properties on my own, so imagine managing 100 of them for other people. There's always tenants calling, owners complaining, repairs needing to be coordinated, rent being late, and contractors not showing up. And remember, that $20,000 is still gross before your software, payroll, insurance, accounting, and any other expenses that come with running this business. So the trap is buying a small property management company and thinking you bought a passive recurring revenue. What you might have actually just bought is a phone call that never stops ringing. And finally, the sixth business you should avoid at all costs is an auto repair business. Now, at first, auto repair sounds like one of the best boring businesses. Cars are always breaking, people always need repairs, new cars are super expensive, there's always a demand for it. But here's what makes auto repair very dangerous. The demand is not the problem, the labor is the problem, the trust is the problem, and the technology is the problem. There's a massive technician shortage happening right now. In a 2025 report covered by Motor, 31% of auto repair shops cited technician shortage as their biggest challenge. And that's why buying an auto repair shop can be very risky, because if the seller is the main mechanic, you might not be buying a business, you might just be buying a job. And the second that mechanic or business owner leaves, the customers might leave with him. A shop can have great revenue, but if the entire business depends on one technician, one service advisor, and one owner's reputation, then the cash flow is not as transferable as it looks. So yes, the auto repair business has demand, but the question is not, do people need car repairs? The question is can you hire and retain great technicians? Can you keep up with the fast changing technology? Can you maintain trust? And can you make sure you don't lose money on this business? So there you have it, folks. These are some of the worst boring businesses to start or even buy in 2026. Let me know if I missed any or your thoughts down below. I'm curious to see what you guys think. Subscribe for all things money, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.